Hello everybody! Today is Earth Day, and in honor to Climate Action Week, we wanted to have a very special conversation putting this topic in front. Because you might think online events do not produce a lot of carbon emission. Is this true? Is this a rumor? I'm not quite sure, and I'm very much looking forward to have a conversation about this topic with my special guest today, Lubomila Jordanova. And Lu is the co-founder and CEO of Plan A and the co-founder of Green Tech Alliance. So she can for sure give us a lot of valuable insights on how event organizers can actually reduce their carbon footprint.
PIRATEx Deep Dive. All things remote events.
Welcome, Lu. It's great meeting you. How are you doing? Hi there.
Hi. I'm really happy to be here. I'm doing great.
Me too. I would have loved to meet you in person, but I think especially in regard to the topic we're talking about today, this is actually quite good that we're meeting online. You guys are sitting in Berlin, right?
Yeah, sitting in Berlin, and in this particular moment, sitting in the Plan A office in Berlin.
Nice. So you're not in home office?
We have a huge office and anyone can get their own room. So we're isolating in the office in small numbers. Majority of the people are working from home. I prefer to be in the office. I still like physical spaces. Yeah. Well, there's not much contact, but at least like changing the scene.
Yeah, I feel you totally. Same. I'm in the office in Cologne today haven't been here for quite a while, so it's great to see some colleagues as well. So, Lu, you know it, and I think everybody out there knows it as well. When you're doing a physical event, a digital event, same as when you're actually doing a physical one, what you need is basically a location, right? A space where everything is happening. And we at Pirate, we collected in the last year about 340 different event tech tools and software solutions that offer exactly that. So we came across a lot of event technologies, but honestly, we haven't seen something like what you guys are doing. So you could basically say you are a category for yourself. And I don't know, I think you can explain it much more better than me. And I'm really happy that we're having this conversation today and we get some details from you. So can you tell us a little bit, what is Plan A? What are you guys doing? And especially, how does your tool support event organizers?
Absolutely. So Plan A is a Berlin-based startup that has developed a software as a service platform that enables businesses to calculate, monitor, and reduce their emissions. We work with a variety of industries, automotive, with tech. We work also with construction companies, fashion companies. But as a company that has been having since day one a lot of love for the event industry as well, we developed a specific module of the platform that is dedicated to event organizers. It's a carbon management software solution that optimizes the calculation for emissions for event organizers, and it also gives them recommendations on how they can make their online and offline events more sustainable.
So super relevant in current times, or from every time. But I'm curious, can you give me some more background? How did this idea develop? How did you guys, especially also know that this is, or found out that this is something that event organizers really need?
We have been working on climate change, sustainability, and carbon accounting related topics since 2017. Mm-hmm. And we are experts in that. My team is made up of scientists and also data engineers that particularly have developed skills in supporting companies to understand how they can manage their carbon footprint. One thing that we also have been doing since day one is organizing events. And Plan A has organized by now more than 50 events. We had 15,000 attendees only in the last 2 years.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's really, but the events that we organize are quite diverse. So some have been able to gather like huge crowds. Like for example, this weekend we did a cleanup in Berlin, where we gathered 100 and something people. Of course, everything was COVID protected.
Conform. Yeah.
Exactly. And other events that we've organized, like movie nights, we've done also Meet the Scientists. We're now doing series of online events called Meet the Giants, where we connect individuals and professionals to heads of sustainability of famous companies like O2, Atos, Swedbank, and other Salesforce. Like we did this. This was the first episode, which has given us a bit of a context on why this industry, first of all, is prone for innovation when it comes to sustainability.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, has given us a lot of love for this topic and a lot of knowledge on what elements constitute kind of building up an event and how they can be improved to become sustainable. With this in mind, we essentially decided to build a module so that we support all the event organizers, festival organizers, also like conference organizers, so that they have a really strict and very straightforward to-do list when it comes to making this event sustainable.
And when we think it a bit more practical, like how can we imagine that? What are the emissions or the impact that you actually calculate when doing such things?
So we look into how your money translated into CO2 emissions. So this is kind of, one more general thing that we allow event organizers to do. We also look at waste because obviously events, especially the physical ones, could be quite wasteful. And we also look at engagement. So these three elements put together actually allow for a very robust and comprehensive perspective on what is an event actually doing to the environment, whether it's online, whether it's offline, and how this can be mitigated by either substitute or suggestions for substitute services or products or methods. Doesn't always need to mean additional costs. It could be simply like improving your processes. And also like how this can be translated into engagement with people. And why does this matter is because the event industry is a robust economic force. The event industry is every industry. At the end of the day, anyone that organizes an event is actually from every single industry, which means that the opportunity for impact by engaging people to come to a place or join you online on a certain topic is huge, and it should be utilized.
And I mean, the event industry itself, it turned itself around in the last year like crazy. It feels like we're now working in a completely different cosmos, basically. Is there any factor where you would say, okay, this is something we focus on much more now, since the majority of events is online than in a physical setup?
We have been quite pragmatic with the way we've developed the tool, because we know that the future of events is not only online. So with this in mind, we have added functionality that is specifically related to online, but also to offline events. What we calculate for both of these cases is what are the savings if you choose one path or the other.
Yeah.
Of course, physical events are a lot more exhaustive, and especially if there's catering, especially if there's expo kind of setup where there's a lot of stands and exactly. So we always make sure that there's a detailed understanding and perspective on how this event could be improved and how you choosing one path or the other can make things better. In both cases, there's a negative impact. We should not be saying that physical events are always more exhaustive, just because actually with physical events, quite often there's a lot of opportunity for things to happen that wouldn't happen in the online environment, such as engagement. And normally these things cost a lot of energy, cost a lot of kind of use of certain tools and so on. So we show the full picture, and then an event organizer can decide what's best for them.
Super cool. I wonder why we never, I think we never tried it. No, we never tried it, but we should. Lou, can you so how would the process be? So if I would set up my event, what would be the next step? So I just implement? Tell me, how would it work? Like, how would I do it in a use case?
We start with one assessment, which allows us to understand how far you are in your maturity of knowledge of sustainability. So if you're quite in the early stages, we always take the chance to give you a bit of an education or background on why does this even matter, because that has been proven to lead to better results, because then people are more engaged with the topic. Otherwise, they feel it's a burden. Once we have this assessment done, we move on to understanding the event and so on. Like, this is more like still in a conversation phase. And then after that, the tool gets to be adjusted to what we've learned so that it's applicable to your use case. Is it an online event? Is it an offline event? Once you're onboarded on the platform, you go through a set of data collection activities, also a set of questions related to your behavior and kind of the choices that you've made in terms of purchases. Also, if there's a physical event, like is there catering? Are you paying for people to travel to the conference? Are you limiting the types of transportation and so on? And all of these data points are collected to then allow for this to be visualized on a dashboard so that you can essentially have an analysis of the status quo. Once this is done, this leads to a place which we call the action plan, where based on the data that has been given to us, you're able to find suggestions on how you can improve. These suggestions are related to different ambitions that you might have. So it could be that you want to make your event water positive. It could be that you want to make your event essentially plastic free, or to be net zero, where essentially you have a very clear guideline on what you started with and how you want to reduce on the way. And based on this ambition, the recommendations adjust themselves, and then you can get going. After this is done, there's also an opportunity from our team to engage your participants at the event, where we equip you with different communication materials where you can kind of explain to them how they can be part of the journey. Because at the end of the day, a big chunk of the emissions of an event organizer come from the attendees themselves. So that's kind of the next point. And then as a final step, you have essentially the analysis of how things went, where it could be improved, and then on to the next one.
Yeah, love it. Especially that you really individualize the solutions that you give people concerned on what event they're hosting. Is there, I'm just wondering, is there like a factor or an impact that people often forget about? Is there something that has a high impact that people might not know about? Anything comes to your mind? You just said the attendees could produce much more carbon emission that you actually expect. What is something that surprises people? Like, oh my gosh, really? That is like so negative?
I think we can define the answer of this question in a few categories. So if you look at carbon, there's definitely the energy consumption that is quite easily forgotten. But people think that when they're online at a conference that, barely any impact has been made. The truth is that the infrastructure that is powering platforms like Zoom or Hopin or others is really
it's insane,
high.
Right? Yes.
Yeah. And also, just in terms of CO2 emissions, there's close to 50 to 70% reduction if you switch off your camera.
Crazy.
Whereas most of the time people are just like standing with the camera without even being part of the conversation. They're just maybe listening in. Yeah. So that's something that is quite useful to know. When it comes to other elements, well, for example, when we talk about physical events, one often forgotten element is related to plastic and to paper, because we always feel like this is kind of the status quo. We always need to have something that you give to people as a marketing collateral, and then you move on to the next station or whatever it is to continue with the discussions. This is something that we have been shocked when we have worked with conference organizers to see as quite of an exhausting, because people usually don't really they forget about this. Like they take a photo, they throw it away. So there's really nice, very elegant ways of you optimizing this with like QR codes and so on. And then the final thing that maybe just generalizes the two others is when it comes to events, the main contributing factor are the smallest elements, but when you compile them all together, they lead to actually a significant chunk of the negative impacts. And I'll give the example of kind of all of the little physical elements that we have. They've individually have been produced somewhere, most likely traveled, and that's part of the scope 3 of an event.
Like the supply chain and everything that is on it.
Exactly. Is it for the badge? For example, speaking of Pirate Summit, for example, I still have I used the thing that was the string for the badge. As from my keys, but most likely these kinds of elements just get thrown away because you get them all the time. So when you put these things all together, this is where the biggest kind of hidden CO2 emission compilation sits, and this is where you can make a big impact, also a lot of marketing actually, if you eliminate all of these while organizing events.
Yeah, it's like these nice to have things where we actually think we generate some value for the participants because it's something special. But if you think about it twice, you can maybe create something special in a nicer way if you think it from a carbon neutral point of view. Lou, is there like that was already a good tip, and also the thing with turning off the camera. I think it's crazy. Not a lot of people know that digital events actually consume like tons of energy and are not as carbon neutral as we actually think. Are there any other recommendations, hints you would give people where you would say this is easy, or an easy way where you can reduce your climate impact when it comes to online events specifically, maybe?
So I immediately thought of something in the physical space. So I'm just going to say it because maybe this is my...
We will come back to the physical.
Exactly,
events.
This is where I always go back to because I have a lot of love for physical events, and there's just so much value in them. Yeah. We're going to come back to them someday soon. So what maybe for online events, what I can recommend is for the organizers themselves to be quite willing to speak about these elements that contribute to the negative impact of the event, because first of all, you're going to stand out because no one does that, and second of all, you're going to influence the choices and the mindset of the hundreds of people that are visiting your events. So by simply saying, hey, please switch off your camera because this is going to reduce by 50% the emissions from the event. Please make sure that when you are, listening to the event, you're not doing 200 other things at the same time, because it's also exhaustive. And actually, Zoom uses a lot more energy if you're doing a lot of stuff in the background. Okay. So these small things like that actually multiply the impact and allow for the event to be a community gathering rather than simply someone speaking and you listening, helps a lot. And maybe something kind of a final thing is that you can actually find a lot of... So it's not my place to speak for one platform versus another. Mm-hmm. The only thing that I would kind of point people to is that if you are losing more than half of your battery while being on one tool versus another, most likely you should be considering other tools.
Okay, see, so this is actually you can decide by yourself, because you see it on first sight. That's really a really good tip. And also, as you said, these are the small things, and they can easily be changed. As you just said, it's just super important to talk about it. and to create this awareness, because it doesn't cost a lot of effort for you to close the things in the back while you're on a Zoom call, or to just switch off your camera, right? But I think if you don't know it, you just don't care because you're not aware of it. No, super, super relevant. Thank you so much. You guys are, my colleague told me you are also planning a new initiative to work on something to prevent greenwashing. Is this right? Can you tell us a little bit more what's coming up for Plan A in the next month or in the near future?
The campaign actually launched last week, and it's against greenwashing. The point of it is to allow people to understand about the challenges we face thanks to greenwashing. So according to the EU, more than 50% of the claims for carbon neutrality that have been made by companies are actually invalid because they have not followed strictly the scientific guidelines on how to calculate emissions and how to then neutralize them. So our campaign is essentially an ask to the European Commission as well as to the UK authorities to define quite clearly what does carbon neutrality really mean and what kind of a process you need to follow in order for companies to claim that. And this is where we see an opportunity for transparent businesses to really be at par with companies that are claiming sustainability commitments but actually only paying for a marketing campaign. Because at the end of the day, it costs a lot of efforts and a lot of resources and time from the side of these transparent companies who really want to be understood as sustainable because they are working on this actively, and give them the chance to be where they should be instead of kind of allowing for this false information to be traveling the planet and confusing people.
Yeah, love it. No, so good luck with that. And thank you so much, Lou, for your insights, for all your tips and tricks. And for me personally, it's the little things that make the difference, like as always, basically, and transparency and creating awareness, making your participants aware of what it actually costs to join this event. Super valuable insight. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time.
And for everybody out there, you guys should definitely check out the great work Plan A is doing. And in honor of Climate Week, you'll also find a lot of tips and tricks on how you can reduce your carbon emission on our website. So check that out. And yeah, with that in your mind, happy Earth Day. Happy Earth Day to you, Lou, and happy Earth Day to you out there. Thank you.
PIRATEx Deep Dive. All things remote events.